Hello, Zuko here. If you don't know, my name is Jess, but I go by Zimmy on the internet because one time I was 15. So today I'm doing a big unhaul. Now, there's a chance you saw me do a big unhaul last year. I will link it up here, in which I unhauled 100 books. Now, I feel like I need to disclaim this because this is not a normal amount of books to unhaul, especially twice in 2 years, but I buy a lot of books. And I grew up in a small town where if I wanted to read a series, I didn't have access to a bookstore, so I would buy the first book in a series, but if I finished that, I was shit out of luck unless I wanted to drive 45 minutes either way. And my parents didn't want to do that all the time, you know? So I would always buy all of the series at once. And that is a habit that I've not been able to break. So I end up buying a lot of series completed without ever having read the first one. So then I end up unhauling a lot of series after reading the first one and going, oh, this book isn't for me. Just for funsies, I took a picture of them all stacked on top of each other, which I'll post right here. And yeah, let's get right into this. These books are either going to my local used bookstore, my local school division, or my middle school English teacher who's trying to build up a nice, diverse classroom library. Yeah, that's very exciting. Let's jump right into it, I guess, because I have a feeling this is gonna be a long video. I got my water here. I got my dog standing behind the camera, really hoping that I will bring him down so that he can do big clippy clop feet all over the floor while I'm trying to film. I wish he would just lay down. Let's go. Let's do these three first. Okay, the first three books I have here are the first three books in the Diviners series by Pug Break. I read the Diviners. I didn't like the Diviners. I think it was hundreds of pages too long and I was bored and I kind of just gave up at the last 15 minutes of the audiobook because I'm like, I don't care. I can guess what happens. I don't want to be here anymore. So if that's how I feel about the first book, I don't really want to continue on with the series, so these ones are leaving. Next year, I have The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon and The Mime Order. I read like half of this one and spent the whole time with no idea what was going on. Like none. I couldn't tell you what was happening and I didn't care. There was so much world building all crammed into too little space that I had no idea what was going on and I just didn't care. So I will be getting rid of these. Next, I have Year One and Blood and Bone by Nora Roberts. I think I may have tried to unhaul these two last year. It is because I have hardbacks of matching covers of the whole trilogy, but I was like, I kind of, if I read them, it'd be nice to read in a big floppy paperback. But now I'm just like, I'll probably get the audiobooks. So, okay, we're good. We're down 7. We got 93 more books to go. Let's go in here. Let's go. Okay. Next, we have Mooncakes by Wendy Zhu and Suzanne Walker. I'm only getting rid of this book because I'm sending it to my middle school English teacher to put in her classroom library. And I have the hardback special edition, so I didn't need 2 editions. Then I have Chasing Forgiveness by Neil Shusterman. This is a book based around a true story. A boy is kind of dealing with the grief after his dad kills his mom, and he's kind of dealing with being able to forgive his dad for what he's done. Again, based on a true story. This book was a good read. It's fast, but I feel like it's important for some reason, and I wanted to keep it for a while, but now I'm like, I'm probably not going to reread this, right? So passing this along. I have no idea what else is in here. Then I have His Hideous Heart, edited by Talia Adler. This is an anthology series with 13 stories inspired by Edgar Allan Poe's works and like reimagined by different authors. And I think it also includes the 13 original stories in the second half of the book. I went partway through this. It is fine. I just don't like short fiction and I don't like anthologies, so I don't want to keep this on my shelf knowing I'm probably never actually going to read it. We have We Set the Dark on Fire and We Unleashed the Merciless Storm by Taylor K. Maja. I read the first one and I just didn't like it. These are a like sapphic dystopian, maybe Hispanic inspired YA series, and I just didn't like them. Goodbye. Then I have The Nowhere Girls by Amy Reed. This is a YA contemporary following a bunch of girls who are trying to get some kind of justice for the behavior of the like athlete kids at their school who are kind of able to get away with doing some pretty horrendous acts, and the way that the school protects these athletes instead of protecting the girls. And I enjoyed this book, but I think it would be better suited to a younger audience. So passing this along. Frankly in Love by David Yoon. This is a story about a Korean American boy who fake dates his Korean American friend so that they can both date people of other races so that their families don't disapprove and they probably end up falling in love with each other. I don't know. I didn't finish this. I don't like straight contemporary romances. I don't really like contemporary romances at all. So yes. I have The Witch Boy by Molly Knox Ostertag. This is a very cute graphic novel about a like little community in which like men traditionally have shape-shifting magic and women traditionally have like more spell-casting witchy magic, and this boy wants to learn like spell-casting and not shape-shifting, and it's a whole ordeal. This was just very cute. Then I have Blade So Black and Dream So Dark by L.L. McKinney. These are, I think, dark, gritty Alice in Wonderland reimaginings, and I tried to read them and they just felt young in a way that I don't like, so I didn't keep them. Then I have Ripper by Stefan Petruccia. I tried to read this, but like the plot twist was kind of spoiled immediately, and this is like some orphans who are going to solve the Jack the Ripper mystery, but like it starts with a letter from a guy who's probably Jack the Ripper, and then like 3 pages later you find a letter in the same handwriting from someone who I think is the main character's dad in the same handwriting, and you're like, okay, and you Google the ending and that's what it is. So yeah. Then I have the No Longer Secret Stories of Queer Teens Throughout the Ages, edited by Sandra Michelle. This is a anthology series about queer teens throughout the ages. Again, just don't really like anthology series, so that's that on that. If I bring you down here, will you be the quietest, best behaved pants in the whole world? No mouth licking, no wiggling, no complaining. We have a very unhealthy and codependent relationship and cannot be apart from each other for too long. He gets very upset. Honestly, same though. Then I have Song Below Water by Bethany C. Morrow. Honestly, I just feel like this would do better at a school library where a bunch of people can check it out and read it, and I just felt like I was a bit too old to really love the story in this book. So yeah. Then I have Darkest Deepest Red by Anna Marie McLemore. This is a like reimagining of The Dancing Flag, and it's queer, but I just found it kind of lackluster, so meh. Then I have Faith Taking Flight by Julie Murphy. This is a fat queer superhero book, and I think that this would do really well at a school library, so I'm getting rid of it. Then I have When We Were Magic by Sarah Gailey. This is about a group of teenage girls who are kind of trying to cover up a crime, and I didn't like that there was no like real repercussions for what they did, even if it was like an accident, so I didn't love that, but otherwise it was a fun queer book. I just don't really need it on my shelf anymore. Then I have The Last Bus to Everland by Sophie Cameron. This is a kind of fun queer kind of portal fantasy book about a kid who finds out that every Thursday at like 11:58 or whatever, like you can open this certain door and you go to this like fun place where time works different and the world is weird and the doors start closing, and it's a whole thing. And this is a like interesting teen book about kind of not feeling listened to or understood and kind of dealing with not being financially secure. So yeah. Then there is Darius the Great Is Not Okay. This is about a boy who goes to, I believe, Pakistan to visit his family, and he's just kind of trying to find his identity and where he fits in with his community and culture, especially when he's on, I believe, a medication for depression, which is not super understood by his family. And yeah, this is just a super cute YA read that I think I want more people to get a chance to read. Then I have Because I Love to Hate You, an anthology series based on, I think, Disney villains. I believe this was like collaboration stories between booktubers and authors, and I'm just never gonna read this because I don't like anthologies, so yeah. Then I have A List of Cages by Robin Rowe. This is a story about a boy with ADHD who gets reconnected with his family's old foster child, and he becomes friends with him and kind of unravels the abuse that is going on at that kid's current home with his uncle. And this book was very good and very dark in ways that I wasn't expecting. There was a lot of graphic bad child abuse in this, I guess, but I enjoyed this book, and I'm like unsure if it's fit for a YA audience, even though I think that was the target audience. It makes me uncomfortable to be like, here teens, read this, because it feels like too much, but also I'm just really out of touch with what is appropriate for teens. Then I have The Taking of Jake Livingston by Ryan Douglas. This is a short horror novel about a boy who had committed a school shooting and then I believe took his own life, haunting a boy who can see spirits. And this book is also very dark and uncomfortable and hard to read, and I'm not sure I feel comfortable donating this to the school. I just don't know. I have this and I don't think I'll reread it, so yeah. And lastly in this box I have Dreadnought by April Daniels. This is the first book in I believe it's a duology with a trans main character superhero, where she is there when the superhero Dreadnought dies, and I think she touches him and she ends up with her ideal body and a bunch of superpowers. And I've only read this one, I haven't read the sequel, but I want this to go somewhere where a lot of kids can read it. So I figured it would do more good at a school than on my shelf. That's the end of this box. Oh, I get to put it all away. Oh boy. Okay, I have The Amazing Book Is Not on Fire by Dan Howell and Phil Lester. I tried to read this. I really did. I was like, okay, I paid money for it. I should try. I should give it a chance. And I couldn't do it. I just can't. It's too LOL, so random, like directed at 12-year-olds, and I'm not that. And I wanted to support them and I bought it. Quite frankly, they don't need my support. I'm sure they're doing fine. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do this book. Goodbye. I'm just gonna do something horrible. Ready? I don't know why I thought that was a good idea. First here, on this pile of books that's fallen on me, I have the Haters series by David Moody. I tried to read the first one, it was kind of meh, and I had just read the first book in the Autumn series before this and didn't love it. So I have these. Then I have Alex Crow by Andrew Smith. This is a very strange book, and I just don't see myself rereading it, so. Then I have The Last Girls by Dimitra Brodsky. This book is about 3 sisters living in a doomsday cult. Also a side plot of a boy who's trying to find his 3 missing sisters, as you can imagine how that plays out. Then I have We Were Restless Things by Cole Nagamatsu. This book has a weird teenage pseudo-incest bullshit. Like, there was clearly the author had a step-sibling kink and it was gross, and these are minors, and I hated it, and this was my least favorite book of last year, and I just want to light it on fire. The cover is so fucking pretty. Fuck that book. Then I have White Stag by Cara Barberi. This was a Wattpad sensation and a very shitty YA novel. I have the Escape from Furnace series by Alexander Gordon Smith. I read the first one when I was younger and really liked it. I reread it this year and thought it was just fine. Yeah. I'm not going to keep these. I'm not going to read the rest of them, and if I did, I don't think I need them on my shelves either way. Then I have Hemlock by Kathleen Peacock. Impulse Buy, don't want it. Rule of 3 by Eric Walters is a dystopian series where, you know, blah blah blah, all the power stops working and humans are the real monster. I don't even think there's like monsters. I think this is just a humans fight each other dystopian, and I was like, DNF, don't want it. First 2 books in the Rosewood Chronicles by Connie Glenn. This is a like fantasy princessy series written by a YouTuber, and they were very immaturely written and I didn't like them and I DNF'd it, so sorry. Then I have the graphic novel Are You Listening by Tilly Walden. This is a really weird graphic novel and I truly just couldn't follow along with what the fuck was going on, so I don't want it. Forest of Hands and Teeth was a zombie dystopian where everyone was in like a weird religious community that thought they were only left because they had enough God belief. There were a million of these at one point and this one was bad, so yeah. Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie. I just read this and I didn't love it, and I don't think I'm ever gonna reread it, so yeah. So the first book in the autumn series is over there now. So I made the really good choice to throw all of the books out of that bag. Bad choice. These were a zombie series and I just found them slow and boring, and I heard they get more slow and more boring and like the next books just follow the actions or the events of the first book in more than one book, and I'm just not interested. We have the Queen of Hearts trilogy by I believe Colleen Oakes. These are a like dark Alice in Wonderland retelling, and I've never read a good one of those, so that's these. But the audiobook narrator for these is Moira Quirk, the same person who does a fantastic job on the Locked Tomb trilogy by Tamsin Muir, so that was fun. Beasts Made of Night by Tochi Onyebuchi. I have only heard not good things about this book, so I didn't feel like I had to keep it. Heroine Diaries by Nikki Sixx. Don't even really know who Nikki Sixx is. I impulse bought this at Value Village because I liked that it had pictures and stuff, and I'm like, this could be interesting. And it could be. I think I have access to the audiobook, so maybe I'll listen to that one day, but it's not really high on my list of priorities because I don't know who this man is. I'm assuming it's a man. Honestly, I don't know. Apparently they're in Motley Crue. They look male? That doesn't really mean anything. I don't know. Spindle by E.K. Johnston. This was an impulse buy because it's pretty, but this is the second book in this duology, and I don't have the first one, and I just didn't care enough to get the first one, so yeah. Mad Hatters and March Hares, edited by Ellen Datlow. I don't like anthologies. As much as I love Alice in Wonderland, this still wasn't working for me. Again But Better by Christine Riccio. I think I've tried to unhaul this one before too, and I want to hate read it. I really do. I want to hate read this, but I also don't, because I don't like contemporary romance. There's not really a world in which I read a contemporary romance book and like it, especially if it is straight. So like, I would be hate reading this anyway, and I don't know that I want to do that to myself. So yeah, if I do, I'll listen to the audiobook. You're Never Weird on the Internet, Almost by Felicia Day. I read this. It was nice. I don't feel a need to keep it. I'm trying to downsize my nonfiction collection. Grace and Style by Grace Helbig. Very written for young teen, maybe older teen audience, but in 2010. Feels very not relevant. I Hate Everyone But You and Please Send Help by Gabby Dunn and Allison Raskin. I hated these books. You can see why in my, I believe it's the top 10 worst books of 2021 video. Yeah. The Boneless Mercies and Seven Endless Forests, both by April Genevieve Tucholke. I tried to read the first one and it was so boring. I fell asleep for 4 hours of the audiobook and just considered it read after I woke up for the last couple pages. Vengeance Road and Retribution Rails by Erin Bowman. These covers are beautiful. These books were boring. This one is shameful. This is Stranger Things Suspicious Minds by Gwenda Bond. I bought this and then immediately unhauled it. It was an impulse purchase and I was like, oh, that could be fun, and then I read all the reviews where everyone's like, this book was bad and explained nothing, and I was like, oh. The Shadows by Alex North. I DNF'd this book because I did not give a shit about the mystery, and if you can make a mystery boring, it's a bad mystery. Oh, The Serial Killer Whisperer by Pete Earley. I bought this when I was maybe 15 I had just read I Hunt Killers by Barry Lyga, and I wanted more serial killer content, so I picked this up. I never finished it. I have this. I think it's time to let it go. This is about a man who I believe ends up with brain damage and starts writing to people in prison, and they decide to tell him like really personal things about their crimes. Very interesting. I just never finished it, so maybe I will one day, but I think I have access to the audiobook, so. We are down to the last box. I don't know how I had any room for these books on my shelves, because my shelves are really full now, and that's without all of these books. I think I bought less books last year than I'm unhauling, so that's nice. I'm trying to declutter my shelves. It's just hard when the more you read things you like enough to keep, and slowly my shelves are getting overrun. The first series I have here is the Wicked series by Nancy Holder and Debbie Vigui. This is it looks like a trilogy, but I believe the first two are bind-ups of 2 novels each. My cousin let me borrow this when we were young teenagers, and I never gave it back, and then I bought the sequels, and she never asked for it back, and she does not watch my videos, so she doesn't need to know. The Babysitter's Coming by Kate Williams has a really pretty cover, but I just don't think I'm ever going to get to it. The Prince of Neither Here Nor There and The Prince of Two Tribes by Sean Cullen are, I think, a middle grade fantasy series that I just picked up when I was really young and don't have any interest in now. Really young, I was like 16. Horrid by Katrina Leno is a YA kind of horror familial mystery book. It was weird, and I don't think I explained anything well, and it felt unfinished, and I just didn't like it. The Bone Witch by Rin Chapeko, I just DNF'd because I got bored and I didn't really have any interest in reading it. Everland by Wendy Spinelli, or Spinell, is a like dark fairy tale reimagining a world in which there is an apocalypse that has killed all the adults or something. It was fun, but I think it was for younger audiences than 25, and I want to make sure it goes to those younger audiences so that they can actually enjoy it. Lost in the Neverwoods was one of the worst books I read in 2021. This is by Aidan Thomas, author of Cemetery Boys, which was a great book. I don't know how this shit followed it. The Love That Split the World by Emily Henry was a cover buy from my first year, I think, on BookTube, and at this point I just don't want to read it, so I'm not going to. Into the Heartless Woods by Joanne Ruth Meyer was like kind of fun but kind of boring and kind of too heterosexual for me, and so I'm gonna pass it along. Genius by Leopold Gout is some kind of hacker book, I think, and I don't want to read it. Winterwood by Shay Earnshaw was incredibly boring and forgettable, and I don't remember the plot even though I read it last month. I think this book had twists that were not twists because you knew from pretty much the start what was happening, so book was boring. It had no plot. The Inexplicable Logic of My Life by Benjamin, I can never say his name, Elier Sanez. I have Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe, and I've heard that this is kind of similar, but it's also way longer, and I don't want to read it, so I'm not going to. I've also never read Aristotle and Dante, and I need to, and I don't need 2 unread books by this person. A Peculiar Peril by Jeff Vandermeer. I have not enjoyed any of the Jeff Vandermeer books that I have read, so I just am going to stop buying Jeff Vandermeer because I don't think he's an author that I personally enjoy. The Wild Ones by Nafisa Azad. I was so excited about this book. This cover is beautiful. It was so promising, and then it just felt really boring and weirdly written, and the prose were crunchy. They didn't flow, and I didn't like it. I DNF'd it, and I'm still sad about it because this cover is beautiful and I was really excited to read it. I'm like kind of sad about getting rid of these, but these are the Search for Wandla, Battle for Wandla, and like Quest for Hero for Wandla, all by Tony Lizzie, and these are beautiful. They're illustrated on the inside. These are a like middle grade. I thought it was going to be a fantasy series, but it seems to be more sci-fi leaning. I'm at a point where I've read a lot of YA, and I want to read more adult books, and these are middle grade, and I could just tell as I was reading them that these were not vibing with what I want in books right now. So I'm gonna pass these along, even though I'm sad because these are beautiful. Okay, and then lastly, I'm just gonna hold up the first one. I have 7 Realms novels. There are 4 of them. By Cinda Williams Chima. I tried to read this when I was young, when it first came out. I was probably 14 or 15, and I didn't make it very far before I DNF'd it, and then I went, I don't like fantasy. High fantasy is silly and boring. I told myself that for a decade, that I didn't like fantasy. I tried to read this year because I'm like, okay, like my opinions have changed. I like fantasy now as long as it's written well, and I tried to read this, and it's just, it reads very like it was written like in the 2010s, and I just wasn't vibing with that. I want things that feel more relevantly written, and I just don't know that the writing and the tropes in this have aged well. So yeah, I DNF'd the whole dang series, which honestly, having a full series on your shelf and DNFing the first book and realizing you don't need 4 500-page books on your shelf and you get rid of them and you have all of that extra space is such a nice feeling because you have space to put books that hopefully you really love. And if you don't, you DNF them and you do this again. I want to make it very clear. This is not a normal amount of books to be getting rid of. If you own less than 100 books, that's awesome. I love that for you. If you could never do this in your life, don't ever strive to be able to get rid of this many things, That's absurd. There's no reason you need to own this many things. I should be reading audiobooks and then buying the book if I like it, and not the other way around where I buy the book and then I listen to the audiobook. Like, I don't crack these things open half the time, more than half the time, and then I unhaul them after never even using the physical book. That's absurd. It's a terrible way to do things, and I know that, but this is what I put my money towards, and that's on me making bad decisions. I don't want this to be like normalized, you know? It's not a normal thing to do. That doesn't change the fact that I do it, and that I already have a stack of, I think, more than 10 books already from 2022 that I've read that I am gonna be getting rid of next January. But I also find it so satisfying to get rid of these books because I buy them thinking I'm gonna love them, right? They live on my shelves initially with me going, I'm gonna love these books, this is gonna be great. Because I wouldn't buy a book thinking that I'm gonna hate it, except maybe that Stranger Things book, I guess. Yeah, so these were all bought with the intention of loving them and reading them, and then I just didn't. And that's okay for me, personally, with my money. And I get to pass these along to school libraries and stuff, which are incredibly underfunded, so I get to feel good about my dumb habits going to positive places. Also, if you noticed, I have my I'm Thinking About Books hoodie that Ariel Bissett came out with, which I love. It's gonna go up here in my outfit rotation with all of my Critical Role shirts and my The Book Was Better sweater. And yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you haven't and would like to see another 100 book unhaul, I will have that linked obviously up there in the cards, and in the end screen I will have it there as well. If you're still here, let me know down below. Do you tend to only buy the books that you know you will like, or do you do anything similar to this? Or do you read mostly on Kindle so that you don't have to do this at all and you're saving a lot of money and resources? Let me know. Yeah, I'm excited to finally get this video out because I've been wanting to get these books out of my house. So yeah, I'll see you whenever I do my next video. You're a bad pug. You're a bad pug. You're a little stinky, dinky, winky little guy. Just a bad pug. You're a bad pug. You're cute as heck and it just ain't fair.